أحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Just gone 12 minutes past 7 on a Monday evening, and if it's a Monday evening, then it's the Business Matters program on Radio Al Ansar. You with me, Anwar Mullah, and I'm going to be with you for the next 45 minutes or so, speaking on the Business Matters program. Tonight, the 19th of August 2024, Business Matters brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce. And you can catch us on 90.4 FM Durban or 105.6 Peter Maritzburg. And if you want to call in, the number in the studio 0861 904 904, or you can WhatsApp us on 060 904 1056. A very interesting guest lined up tonight, and she's joining us online, and her name is Zainab Sarang. Zainab is from an organization called Womvest. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And she's also the founder of an organization called Build, and she's going to tell us more about that. But tonight's topic is about gender stereotypes and how to deal with gender stereotypes in the business space. With that, it's a very, very warm welcome to Radio Al Ansar to Zainab Sarang.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for the opportunity to be here.
Zainab, thanks for joining us tonight. Lovely to have you on air. Please tell us from which part of the country are you joining us?
I am from Johannesburg, actually the south of Johannesburg. I'm from Lenasia.
Okay.
Very far away from you, but a little chillier here as well.
Yes, I had the pleasure of interacting with quite a few people from your part of the woods yesterday. There was a lovely tennis tournament taking place there here, hosted by the Racketeers Tennis Club.
That's correct, yes.
And there were quite a few people, or most of the entries were actually from upcountry. Both the finalists were from the Gauteng region, a young set of boys, the Valley boys that did extremely well to win the tournament. But there were some people from Lenasia that were in the semi-final, and they did extremely well as well.
So, that's actually my my tennis club, Lenasia Tennis Association.
Oh, okay.
Just giving them a shout out there.
Yeah, they had two players in the semi-finals who played extremely well. Unfortunately, they lost to the Valley boys. And it was good to see the young talent coming through. So well done to your club out there, and may they grow from strength to strength. Yeah.
I mean,
Zainab, you are a founder of an organization called Build. So firstly, tell us a little bit about Build, and then we'll talk about Womvest, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And then talk about the gender stereotypes in the workplace. So what is Build all about? I'm sure it's something to do with the foundations that have been laid, and you're building on something. But tell us what it's all about.
Absolutely. So just a little bit of context just to frame our conversation. I'm actually a lawyer by profession, and I worked in legal advisory in the corporate space for many years. And within that space, I was exposed to BE advisory. And that's something that I found a lot of interest in. I'm not sure if you're very familiar with BE, but there's a scorecard for BE, and there's different elements which private entities must comply with in order to be BE compliant. And one of the elements within the BE framework is something called enterprise development. And I found this quite interesting because what it does is it sort of compels private entities to spend a certain percentage of their net profit after tax on developing really small businesses, providing support, training, grants, contributions, whatever it may be, but just providing support to small businesses. And that was something that I particularly took to. It became something that I drove as a separate project within BE. So I would create the enterprise development programs for corporates and then facilitate them and run them. But what I noticed was that, and again, it is a bit of a generalization, but generally in the corporate space, what happens is, especially within BE compliance, is a lot of it is just a tick box exercise. So corporates will say, well, here's the money that I've ring fenced for BE compliance, just do whatever you need to do and get it done. And I thought that more needed to be done in this space to actually make real impact. And that's when I founded Build. So Build is a social enterprise that focuses on empowering micro woman-owned businesses, particularly in the informal sector. So we're looking at home-based industries, really small businesses, generally the small businesses that are created out of a need, out of a necessity, and not so much, just a nice to have. And so Build would provide support to these small businesses under the umbrella of enterprise development. At the end of last year, Build was acquired by a company called Womvest, and Womvest then appointed me as their CEO. So that's sort of the story behind how Build came into being and what it is that we do. And within Womvest, I still do BE advisory, management consulting, and we still run the Build aspect of it, where we have like accelerator programs, incubators, those kind of things, just to sort of help these small businesses with tools and resources to actually grow.
Okay, we're talking about Womvest. Who are the people behind Womvest?
So at the moment, I am the CEO of Womvest, and then the two partners are Maya Burney and Natasha Malola, but one is based in the UK and one is based in the US. We have a project coordinator who is Zaira Sidat. And then we have a marketing intern and, just sort of support staff for that as well.
I can see clearly a very, very woman-based organization, but nothing wrong with that. And with Womvest, which has now acquired Build, tell us some of your kind of success stories, if you may call it that, that you have had with these micro organizations and women that you're trying to uplift.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about this. So, the idea is not so much quantity, but it's really quality. So when we go through a process of where a corporate says, I've got 100,000 Rand to spend on enterprise development and make it happen for us, we don't look at just getting, 50 businesses in there and just doing training and getting them out. It's a very refined process. So there's an application process that we ask small businesses, like through our social media platforms, on our website, where they can apply to be part of this accelerator program. And then we create training programs that are specific for these kind of startups. This is at a really foundational level. And we've had quite a lot of success. So our last year's cohort for one of our accelerator programs, these ladies had started out with, just running through WhatsApp and just basically running a business just to kind of bring in some money, any money. And at the end of the program, one of the ladies had created a website, an online store. She had gone on to stock a few bakeries because she was providing baked goods. So she had become now a supplier to a few of these of bakeries. One of the other ladies had then partnered with another company in a design space sort of operation. And they actually learned a lot about not just doing business, but also just the power of networking, of collaborating, of using, tapping into other networks to help your own business and your own brand to grow. So we've seen a lot of success from where they were and how they were initially operating to where they are now, where they're actually invoicing and they have, proper financial management and accounting systems. And those are the kind of things that are really important for businesses to succeed. So we have seen a lot of success in that way.
I'm sure that would encourage you to go even further and train even more and refine your systems so that you can see more of these wonderful success stories that you talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the plan. That's the bigger goal. The further or the more people we can impact. And the thing with small women-owned businesses, and this is actually something that has been studied, is that women tend to, when they're building a business, they tend to bring people with them from, within their communities. They're uplifting people in their communities. If they have access to some resources, they're going to be helping someone else out as well. So the ripple effect of that kind of impact is definitely something that we're striving for at Womvest.
Okay. Let's delve into our topic for tonight, which is the gender stereotyping in the workplace. And I'm going to start by saying what I shouldn't be saying, which is the old stereotype of the man's place was at work and the woman's place was at home, and that theory went out of the window a long time ago. These days, we find women playing critical and very, very important roles in the workplace. In fact, the encouragement is there from all levels for women to basically become the leaders of and the captains of industry, to take the lead positions, and obviously in terms of BEE scores as well. The fact that women, and especially what we call black women or non-white women, are taking the lead would increase your BEE score. So at all levels, from government downwards, there's a reality picture. There's that women need to be encouraged to be in the forefront of everything going, and that there's absolutely no reason why they should take a back step. So when we talk about gender stereotyping, obviously you are facing this. You're at the cold front of it. You're seeing it happening all the time. So tell us a little bit about what are some of these gender stereotypes that you come across.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it took me so long to actually move ahead in my own career was because of the biases that sort of hold you back. But to a larger extent, you kind of hold yourself back because you think that these boundaries are drawn and you should respect them or not sort of get too close to them. And so for the longest time, it was more, you're just sort of doing work within your comfort zone. You're doing work that you're good at, not really challenging yourself. Well, this is particular to me. And I realized that, it's important for us to actually step up. We have the capabilities, we have ideas, we have creativity, and changing that narrative is so important. I've got 3 daughters, and I want them to see that they can really do anything as long as they're doing whatever they're doing within the confines of Sharia. There's really no reason why they shouldn't be doing something. And there's common gender stereotypes. Even for men, there's stereotypes that they're more decisive, they're better suited for leadership roles, and women are probably more nurturing and better suited for sort of support roles. And then these stereotypes limit opportunities, and for both genders, for men and for women. I think men would often feel pressured that they need to sort of conform to some kind of aggressive leadership style, or that their trajectory in their career should be a certain way. And the same for women. We often get overlooked for leadership positions, even if we have the capability. So these are things that obviously still exist. A lot has changed over the years. There's such huge strides that have been made for women taking up space. But a lot has to be done still. I don't think there's ever going to be perfect equilibrium. And that's why these discussions are so important. That's why we need to be speaking about them. I think once we're talking about it, we start questioning our own prejudices and our own biases. And it's not just stereotypes, like I said, not just stereotypes against women, but also against men. And making sure that we're creating inclusive spaces. So whatever it is that you want to do for your career, you should be able to do that. It shouldn't be dictated by stereotypes.
Yes, and I think also, and you touched on it, is from a Sharia point of view. There's nothing. There's this thought process out there that because it's a Muslim woman, she has to conform to certain things, that she can't be kind of heading up or leading organizations where there's other men involved and things. And I think that stereotype also has to be addressed, and addressed quite aggressively, where we find that, and we have in our community women that have become the best in their fields, in every field. And and they cannot be held back. If they've got the ability and they've got the capability, why not let them progress and let them be the best they are?
Absolutely. And another important thing about that is that it's not a men versus women thing. I think a lot of women, myself included, we look to men as allies because they have the platform and they have the power. And like you're saying, we should support women. If we have more men saying these kind of things, it's helping us take up that space. So that allyship is really important as well.
Do you think that men kind of feel threatened by having these women around them that are maybe in a position that's higher than them, or they're equals but probably will make an advancement quicker than they can? Do you think there's this element of being threatened that comes into it?
I obviously I can't speak for all men, but I think if a status quo is changing, anyone would feel threatened. I think maybe it comes from some kind of, instinctive nature where you feel like you, as a male, you need to be, the alpha male and the leader and that sort of thing. I think there'll always be a threat when something is changing. You will feel threatened. But it's something that we need to address. The thought here is that no one's taking your job. It's just, if there's someone that's better at it, then they deserve it. And I think we just need to be having those discussions and include men in those discussions and let them understand that it's not a matter of being threatened or having your livelihood taken away or your career taken away, but maybe just upping your game and upskilling yourself and being more creative and innovative in the way you approach your career as well.
Okay, how do gender stereotypes affect a career advancement? You've touched on it, and the opportunities for leadership roles.
Firstly, I'd say the stereotypes sort of affect our own confidence to start off with. There's been a lot of studies around the way men and women approach applying for jobs. So, when you see a job offer and you see the list of requirements, women will make sure they're able to tick all of those things before they apply for the job. And men will sort of say, well, I got about 60% of this, I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. And a lot of that is our own self-confidence. We feel like we need to know everything as women. We need to know exactly what we're getting into before we go ahead with it. And that obviously it comes from conditioning from a young age that, you're a girl, do things this way. Girls don't do this or girls don't do that. And a lot of it that we're going to have to start unlearning and a lot of it that we're going to have to challenge. But it really does affect the way we build our careers going forward. It might take women, I'd say, a little longer to get to where they want to as compared to men. That is a generalization. But generally, from what I've seen from my interactions with other women in corporate, with my colleagues, it tends to take a little longer for us. And particularly because we hold ourselves back, because we held back by these stereotypes. These stereotypes form our own prejudices against ourselves.
Okay. Is there still a perception out there that organizations can hire women at rates that are cheaper than what they would pay to the equivalent male staff for doing the same tasks? Because that is a stereotype that traditionally has also been there.
Yes, no, absolutely. This is a huge problem, actually. And you'll know that annually companies have to submit an employment equity report. And one of the purposes of an employment equity report is you've got to report on your staff profile and on remuneration within occupational levels of that of your workforce. And it asks you questions like, what is the black female in this occupational level earn, and what is the male in this level earn? And those discrepancies, you've got to kind of motivate for that. If there's an inspector that comes on site who has a look at your employment equity report, they might actually ask you about that. So it is something that we're aware of, and it is something that the state is aware of. It is, and it's not something that's particular to South Africa. It's globally. It's a global issue. I mean, even with athletes, they have the same problem. Women athletes have been fighting for years to get paid the same as their male counterparts. So it's definitely something that happens. But I think that we're starting to kind of dig into that a little more. It's not yet, I mean, it's not fixed. It's nowhere near being fixed, but it definitely does happen. A lot of times, when we do employment equity planning for corporates, a lot of times clients will say comments like that. They'll say, we should just get women there because the cost to company will be less because we'll pay them less. And, you've got to sort of refocus that, and you've got to explain to your clients why that's obviously not right. But it does happen. It does happen a lot, and something that I see very often.
I suppose if you're in the room when that's mentioned, it's like putting a red cloth in front of a bull.
Yeah, something like that. My husband would agree with you.
Okay, can you share some strategies that businesses can implement to challenge and dismantle these stereotypes? Because I'm coming from a point of view that maybe sometimes it's not done deliberately, but it's just, as you said, it's kind of ingrained in the organization, yes, and nobody's really thought about it any further. So, are there any strategies that can be implemented to challenge these stereotypes?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's sort of become a culture. And undoing a culture is obviously going to be a huge task. But there's so much that you can do with just training, with having seminars, with having diversity, or promoting diversity in your hiring practices, and just speaking about these things. So a lot of companies have team building efforts where they're trying to build up their teams, trying to build up morale and those kind of things. And when they have these initiatives, it would be really good to have diversity training as well, and to speak about these things, because, like you said, a lot of times these things are just taken for granted, and no one really questions whether thinking in these stereotypes is actually wrong or it's actually detrimental. And maybe sometimes it just needs to be pointed out. So, education, firstly, obviously, is key in this. But then also, as a company, when you're doing your employment equity planning, and you do this over a 5-year period, make sure you're looking at, once you found the best candidates, make sure you're looking at some kind of diversity in your promotions, in your recruitment as well. Those kind of things matter.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you a little bit here and say, well, if you take an organization that's headed up by a woman, don't you think this thing actually works in reverse as well, where if you have a woman at the head, she's going to maybe consciously or maybe sometime deliberately surround herself by other women rather than finding the best person for the job?
Well, again, I can't speak for all women that do this, but I can definitely see that could happen. But as I said, I mean, it's not necessarily a men versus woman thing. I think it's just allowing women to take up the kind of leadership space that we want, or that we want to see. It's not necessarily that you precluding men from participating, because obviously each of us have our own strengths. And I think the thing with diversity is not so much that everyone needs to be equal. It's just that everyone needs to have a say. Everyone needs to be a part of something, and everyone comes with something different. So whereas, and again, a generalization, men might be more analytical, and that's not always true, but where they might be more analytical and women might be more creative, there's a balancing that can be found there. And you'll actually find more success within your business if you are employing some kind of diversity in your business. So I wouldn't advise women to strictly be going on a hiring all woman, kind of pursuit. But look out for where anyone can complement what it is that you're trying to achieve with your business. And it doesn't have to be all women. It just so happens that in Womvest, I see where you're going with this. In Womvest, we tend to all be women. But really, we have allies, we have mentors. So we have mentorship programs, and we have mentors who are men as well. And we get some of our absolute best advice from the men in our networks and in our support systems.
Okay, I wasn't going there, but you brought it up. Anyhow, Zainab, if you just joined us, we're speaking to Zainab Sarang. She's the CEO of Womvest, which acquired a company called Build, which she started. And we're talking about gender stereotypes in the business space. And Zainab's been filling us in on some of her examples and what can be done to kind of overcome these stereotypes. So Zainab, we're going to go for a short ad break, and when we come back, we're going to delve further into these stereotypes, and you're going to give us some further solutions as to how we can overcome these and talk a bit more about it. So let's just go for an ad break.
Station for Conversation, Radio Al Ansar.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and Freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Famine, conflict, and severe economic decline make the humanitarian crisis in Yemen the worst in the world. More than 20 million Yemenis do not know where their next meal is coming from, and over 10 million are suffering extreme levels of hunger. With your support, the Al Imdad Foundation delivers essential food aid to starving Yemeni communities. It's a question of survival. So let's do what's right. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Are you or a loved one battling the disease of addiction? Is your family, life, relationships, work suffering due to alcoholism and substance abuse? Zensai Treatment, Recovery and Wellness Center are addiction specialists offering specialized psychotherapy and naltrexone therapy to help overcome addiction. Zensai offers hotel-style facilities to allow your loved ones to regain their dignity and overcome alcoholism and drug abuse in the most comfortable setting possible. Fight addiction. Call Zensai Treatment, Recovery and Wellness Center, the addiction recovery specialist, on 031 563 0751.
Al Ansar International. Business Matters.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. If you've just joined us, you're on the Business Matters program with me, Anwar Mullah. And we're talking about gender stereotypes in the workplace tonight. And we have a very interesting guest, Zainab Sarang, a CEO of an organization called Womvest. She joined us from Lenasia, a little bit colder than we have it here in Durban. But Zainab has kind of warmed us up with many of her brilliant ideas and talking about the gender stereotypes. So, Zainab, before we went off air, you were talking about mentorship and sponsorship. And what role do mentorship and sponsorship play in overcoming gender stereotypes? And how can organizations support these initiatives?
I think mentorships and sponsorships are so crucial for businesses. They provide guidance, support, and they really help individuals that are facing stereotypes. So if I am being mentored by an older woman that's been through many years in corporate and has forged a way ahead, I'd really like to know how she got there and how she did that in the face of whatever prejudices she may have come across. It's a really good idea for companies to create some kind of mentorship programs. One of my consulting firms that I worked at, on my first day of work, the manager, the director, he said they have a buddy program. So they buddy up like an older or someone that's been in the at the company for a while and someone that's a little newer, and they buddy them up. But they specifically choose like an older male to go with a younger female, or an older female to be with a younger male. And the idea there was that to understand from a different perspective, from a different lens. So you coming in with your own, biases or your own lack of self-confidence, whatever it may be, and you then being guided by someone who's doing things a little differently. I think it really opens up your perspective and really helps you shape what you'd like out of your career as well. And it's nice to have a sounding board as well. Sometimes you think that you're going through something on your own, or that no one else has been through something like that. And when you speak to your mentor, you realize that, okay, you're not alone. This is something, and this is something that you can get through, and this is how you can get through. So mentorships are really, really important. It's something that we advocate for, particularly at Womvest. We run mentorship programs throughout the year as well.
Okay. Something that comes to mind is that, and I've heard this said, and I'm not sure how true it is, but there was a particular discussion taking place that I was a part of, and we're talking about university entrance, for example, and females. And somebody mentioned that universities, for example, in the medical field, taking on female students for PhD, don't look at Muslim females favorably, and the reason being, again, a perception that these women come into the state spends so many years teaching them, getting them through a medical degree, and then unfortunately Muslim women get married and they have children, and then they're lost to their profession. So the money spent on educating them is kind of lost by the state, where they don't pursue the career fully, and motherhood takes over, and unfortunately they're lost to the profession. Now, I think this is a stereotype again, and that stereotype, if some at a workplace, if you take it one step further, where two CVs are put in front of somebody, and it's, for example, two young people aged 23, 24, 25, and one would say, but you take on the female, and then her motherly instincts, her motherhood comes in a way, children come along, and we're going to be training this person, teaching this person, and then in a not too far distance future, we're going to be losing the person because of other responsibilities that kind of take a priority. I'm sure you come across the stereotype.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's just a few things that I want to unpack with what you just spoke about. I don't know about the university entrance or acceptance policies or whatever, but also in that same vein, there's stereotypes, and then there's research. So sometimes the research it's sort of to gather data about behavior. Even if you're doing market research, you need to know whether your product is going to sell to men or to women, or however you're targeting. So sometimes these policies are informed by research. Maybe I'm not particularly familiar with that, but there could be some truth in that, in which case it is disturbing. But it must be informed by some kind of research. It must be informed by something more than just someone's opinion of Muslim Indian females. But then, further to that, in a corporate setting, if you're getting CVs from a male and you're getting CVs from a female, and then you say, well, I don't want the female because this is going to happen and that's going to happen. Something very interesting that I noticed particularly, firstly, our working conditions nowadays are so much more different compared to even 10 years ago. I think a lot of people now have a lot more flexibility, men and women alike, where we're able to work from sometimes basically anywhere. As long as the work is done, I don't think there's too much of a hassle. But the other thing that I've noticed and sometimes it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. When women have children and when they're raising families, and they tend to put in a lot more. They put in a lot more effort. Sometimes they're trying to prove that, I can do this job and I can raise my family. And they tend to yield better results, or they tend to be more efficient in the way that they're working. So, while a company might say, they don't want to take on females because there's this risk, at what cost is it to you? Sometimes you might be losing out on an absolutely brilliant candidate who'd be an absolute asset to your company based on a stereotype. So if you're basing your important decisions for your company on stereotypes and prejudices and biases, then you're not really working in the best interest of your company. So I think there's a lot to weigh up with that. A lot of companies are offering flexibility, and sometimes people, because they're so grateful for that opportunity to have that flexibility in their work, they tend to put in a lot more quality in their work and actually yield much better work or more efficient work. So I think if those are the kind of hiring practices that a company is employing, they really need to reassess what it is that they want from hiring a person just because they're going to be in the office every single day.
I think COVID taught us that work can be done away from the office.
Absolutely.
And a lot of companies haven't gone back to the actually full-time working in the workplace. They've asked staff to come in maybe once or twice a week. And they've also saved themselves money by downscaling to smaller office spaces so that and kind of common workplaces so that they don't have to pay those high rentals that they were paying before. And productivity hasn't dropped by the fact that people haven't been coming into the working place. Because if you have somebody that's diligent in what they're doing and they have a piece of work that they have to finish, they will make sure that they have finished that piece of work. And as you're saying, sometimes go even further because they value the opportunity that they've been given.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with that 100%. In fact, I consulted to a multinational company that had 2 floors of offices in the Woodmead area. And after COVID, everyone was working from home, and when they went back to the office, they decided that it was working so much better for everyone just working from home in terms of overhead costs and logistics and people traveling to work and all of that. They just have like one small point of presence office, like just a secretary in a little office, just so that there's sort of a presence. But everyone just works from home now. There's like no office actually.
Okay. We part of the media, and I'm sure there's certain stereotypes in the media as well. What impact does media and societal representation have on reinforcing or challenging gender stereotypes in business? And how can we as media or as a radio station influence any change?
I think the media have such a powerful role in shaping perceptions. And I think that if the media is using their platform positively and they portraying different types of leaders and, not necessarily just putting women on a pedestal or just, just for the fanfare, but doing it in a meaningful and impactful kind of way, I think so much can be influenced. Look, the thing with stereotypes and and these kind of prejudices and racism and all of that, those kind of things, it's something that's never going to go away. We're never going to fix it. But the idea is to make people aware that it exists, and the idea is to create spaces for people that are affected, and the idea is to just sort of level the playing field as best as we can. And I think the media have such an important role in this. The language that they use when they're speaking about female leaders as opposed to male leaders, those kind of things have an impact on readers and listeners and viewers. And I think what you're doing as Al Ansar is so amazing, because you are giving me a platform to talk about all of these issues, and you're not holding back. You want me to say what I need to say about this issue, about this topic, and to provide hopefully workable solutions. And that's so powerful, because whereas these discussions we normally have among women and in closed rooms, and now you're able to say it out on a platform where other people are listening, where other men are listening as well, and they didn't realize that these are some of the challenges that women have in the corporate sphere, where they're now sitting up and saying, well, how can we be an ally? How can we help? How can we bring women to the forefront and make this an inclusive space for everyone?
Okay. I'm going to kind of push the boundary a little bit here. And we've spoken about the stereotypes. We've spoken about male, female stereotypes. But one that is coming through loud and clear and more often these days is the whole LGBTQT issue. And that also would play a role in the workplace. There'd also be some stereotypes around that. Have you encountered any of this in your field of advising and recommending?
So generally, in my space, diversity and inclusion is sort of generic. We sort of speak of it in general terms, and so we advise on generally not holding back, or actively seeking candidates from vulnerable communities or minority communities, and corporates are open to interpreting what a minority community is. But personally, I haven't had to deal with that aspect within diversity. It's not something that has actually come up. But it's a tricky space. I mean, there's the constitutional aspect of it,
Sure.
and the human rights aspect of it. But there's also, obviously, we're guided by our Islamic ethos and our Islamic values as well. So it's thankfully not something that I've had to tread or not something that I've had to manage or advise on. But it is out there, and it is something that that might crop its head at some point. But I'm still. These waters are quite new. Navigating this area is a little tricky. It would definitely be very, very tricky.
I can hear the careful words that you're choosing in terms of trying to deal with that, but I can understand fully. Zainab, we've had an interesting discussion. I think you've kind of unpacked the topic extremely well. Any closing comments to our listeners based on this issue of stereotyping?
I think I just like to firstly addressing younger female professionals or entrepreneurs who want to go out into the world and do something, or those that are entering their years of studies and whatever it may be. I think a lot of us need to start unlearning what we've been told growing up. We need to question boundaries that we see, like, why are those there? Why can't I do this? But at all times, just remember that we're Muslim first, and that whatever is confined for us within the realm of Sharia, that is what must be respected, obviously, firstly and most importantly. But beyond that, ask questions and be bold and try new things or challenge yourself also. Sometimes we tend to, I know when I started working in staff meetings initially, I wouldn't say a word because I'd be so scared, and I'd have an answer or I'd have a solution and I wouldn't say anything, and someone else would say it and I'd think, well, I was going to say that. And I think we need to stop doing that. I think we need to, when you have ideas, when you have questions, speak up and take up your space. And then, to older professionals and older entrepreneurs and businesswomen, help other women along. If you've reached some kind of goal, or you've reached where you wanted to be, or you're getting there, advise others on how to get there, advise others on what they can do to create a similar path for themselves or to forge their own path, but provide the support for them. And then to our male counterparts, we don't need we don't need chivalry or anything. We just need support, and we just need respect, and we just need you to help us create space for ourselves there as well.
Okay, excellent. Zainab, thanks for joining us once again. We've come to the end of the program. I've got Hafiz Wadi sitting here anxiously waiting his turn, and he comes up next on After the News. It's been lovely talking to you. Thanks for your insight. I'm sure it's kind of cleared up some of the stereotypes that people would have had out there, be they male or female. And there can only be positivity coming out of a program like this. So we've touched and we've pushed a little bit on some of the boundaries, but I think that's good. We have to from time to time. And
yes, no, we do.
And yeah, and I think we wish you well in the field that you've chosen. Can't be easy all the time, but yeah, the success stories that you see out there are what keeps you going, and we congratulate you on that. So thanks for joining us once again, and inshallah you grow from strength to strength, and so do Build and Womvest, which are the organizations that you lead and you head up.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah for the platform. Jazakallah for the support.
With that, it's time to sign off again from another Business Matters program, reminding you of the Minara Business Awards evening that's coming up in October. Try to get your tickets as soon as you can. I'm sure it's going to be a great success like every other Minara Awards evening has been. So get out there, being held at the Orient Hall this year. Try to get your tickets from the Minara offices. Amina is the lady that you should be speaking to, and join the Minara team for a lovely evening, and also appreciating the work that's being done by so many individuals from various sectors in uplifting themselves, uplifting the communities, the Community Builder Awards, all of that. And it's lovely to kind of recognize people for what they're putting in and for what they are. So with that, it's goodbye from me. It's for another week, inshallah. I don't think I'm going to be with you next week. I'm in Cape Town for the week, so I'm sure somebody's going to be standing in for me. But inshallah, I'll be back in 2 weeks' time for another Business Matters program. And it's wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.